Welcome to Carl and Heather Present,
the podcast where we dive into the insights, challenges, and humor of being married to someone who is nothing like you.
Are you ready?
Let's go.
Oh, don't you know it's Carl and Heather Present Marriage Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Carl and Heather Present podcast. I am honored today to talk to our guests, Darrin and Vivian Mabuni. Welcome to the podcast. Glad you're on.
Oh,
thanks for having us. We're glad to be
seriously,
here.
we've been looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Darrin and Vivian, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, we have been married for at least 33 years. Well, 33 and a half. I'm
33
kidding.
and a half. Okay.
We have 3 kids.
Yes, 3
daughter.
adult kids. So they do get to a point where they get into the car by themselves.
Oh,
They drive off by themselves and they leave the home. So we actually are empty nesters, and our middle son is married. So we have a wonderful daughter-in-law who's joined the family, and we love her. And we have a German Shepherd lab dog,
Yeah.
120 pounds. He's
so
huge.
you guys are dog people.
We are
We're
dog people.
Yeah.
It's great. We had the last episode we talked about dogs, and I am a reluctant dog person.
Are you reluctant?
Well, I was always like team no dog, and now we've gone to a dog that sleeps in our bed. So
Yeah.
it's,
It's what happened.
yeah. That's
It's what
how they
happens.
get you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that could be a good segue into this next part. So that's where we're different.
Yep.
Like, or a little thing about you. You are, I wouldn't say you dislike animals. You just want them not in your home.
Right.
Right. And I love all the animals and want them all with me all the time.
In the bed.
Yeah.
But we all have things that are different, right, about us. So tell me about something for you guys that might be a little quirk or a difference that you guys experienced
Oh,
or have
gosh.
experienced in
So
your
many, but
33 years of marriage.
well, okay. I'll start with one. Food court. You know, just the way we look at things. So we go to the food court, and Viv already knows what she wants. She's like, okay, I'm going to eat that. And in the beginning of our marriage, I'm like, well, I want to look at everything. And she's like, well, why don't you just decide? Why can't you just decide? And think, I want to see everything. So it was, for me, it was more possibilities. I want the options.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And I was kind of like, let's just maximize our time and just,
Okay.
you know, and if I'm hungry, I don't really care. So I'll just eat what is there.
Yeah.
So it has created some tension at times how we make decisions.
I would make decisions, exactly.
And how we see life. And we realized, I think when we were dating, I thought we were so similar because we both had a heart for ministry. We wanted to kind of go in the same direction. And then when we got married, it was like, oh, well, everything about us is so different. And it's just been this 3-decade plus adventure of discovering like, oh, we are not the same in most areas.
In a lot of areas, yeah.
Yeah. Did you figure that out pretty quickly? Was that something like the food court thing or just areas where you were different? Was that like over time, or was it like you knew from day one, wow, we're very different people?
Well, you kind of know how it is where in the beginning, you let everything go. It's like, oh, yeah, that's cute. That's a cute thing about her. She knows what she wants. And after a while, like, it's kind of get on my nerve a little bit because, like, I want to look around. And obviously not just food court, but just different things that we're doing.
Sure.
And she's getting frustrated because she's like, he can't decide. And it really isn't. It's really that I wanted to know all the options.
Right, right. So
So we kind of we knew, but we kind of let it go in the beginning because, you know, it's like I keep looking at her, but she's so cute. So
She is so
And
cute.
I think during dating, we're always putting our best foot forward. And then when we get married and we're all of a sudden living in the same space,
Yeah.
those kinds of things you can't really hide anymore.
Right.
And that's where I think more of the differences came out.
Real quick, like, what's your origin story as far
Yeah.
as meeting and getting, dating, marriage, that kind of thing?
yeah, go
Do you want me to do my version of
Sure.
it? Okay, so there's the longer version and the shorter version, but with the truncated version,
Okay.
I grew up in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay.
Darrin grew up in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, 2 very beautiful places, but are very different.
Yes.
Then we both joined the staff of Crew.
Okay.
So we were both on staff with Crew. Darrin was in Southern California, UCLA. I was on staff at Berkeley in Northern California. And we both happened to be assigned to a summer mission in the Philippines for the summer. And it was this huge, giant crew event that kept getting shrunken down smaller and smaller because of the political situation in the Philippines and
Okay.
just some
wow, okay.
death threats
Yeah.
and kidnapping threats, all these things. We ended up leading. So it originally started as 300 college students and staff. We ended up leading the remnant team of about 25. And he was the only staff guy, and I was the only staff gal. And we survived a 7.7 earthquake and all of this other craziness, and we fell in love.
Oh,
Dated 3 months and got engaged.
Yeah.
Wait, dated 3 months, you
Yes,
said?
we did.
Yeah.
And got engaged?
Got engaged.
And how were your families about that? Were they like, oh my gosh?
Well, at first they didn't know, right?
Uh-huh.
Because they're like, wait, you're engaged?
Right.
Actually, they
No,
found
they
out because
do,
we got
yes.
engaged in Hawaii, so my
Yeah.
family did know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Darrin actually, my parents at the time were living in Hong Kong. So Darrin had called my parents in the Philippines, or not in the
From the
Philip-
Philippines, yeah.
Not from the
Yeah,
Philippines,
yeah.
from
Oh.
back when we were in California.
Okay.
Okay.
So he called my parents in Hong Kong to ask for
Permission to.
Yeah.
my hand in marriage. My mom actually flew out from Hong Kong to Berkeley to talk with me, and she said, I'm kind of here as the representative for me and Dad. And then she had a letter that my dad had written, like, these are the kinds of questions I would have asked if I had a chance to meet your soon-to-be fiance. Then she goes and visits my sister back in Colorado, and then flies to LA to meet Darrin, just the two of them. And then
In
because
the airport.
at the airport,
Oh gosh.
and then because of a snowstorm, she had to stay longer, so Darrin got more time with her.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of blocked that time out. No,
Yeah, I'm curious about that. So the first time you met your mother-in-law was at an airport after you had asked her daughter to be your wife.
Or that was actually before.
that was before.
Oh, okay, before.
That was
Okay.
before.
But the week of our wedding was the first time that that Darrin had met my dad
Okay.
because
In
they were
person,
living
yeah.
in Hong Kong. Yeah, yeah.
So, I picked her mom up, and I was just going to take her from, pick her up at the gate or at LAX, and we would have time. We'd probably just drive around, and I'd drop her back off,
Yeah.
and she'd catch her flight, and it was delayed, and so she had a day. So the good thing is her mom, her grandmother, lived in Southern California, so I took her to her mom's place.
Yeah, to my grandma's.
Yeah.
So then I got to
Aw.
meet both of them.
Wow.
Yes.
Big day for you,
Wow.
dear.
Thank goodness.
Yeah,
You're on your
Yeah.
best behavior.
yeah, I was.
So
That
yeah.
was
awesome.
a busy day. Wow. So you've been married, you said 33 years,
Mm-hmm.
3 kids, one is married
Yeah.
now.
Yep.
Obviously every marriage has had ups and downs. I'm guessing within that time period you've had several of those, right?
Yes.
And we've talked a little bit about how we all go into marriage with this idea of like the high parts of the for better, for worse, and sickness and health, richer, poorer. We always think about richer, better, those sorts of
Healthy,
things. But we
yes.
never think about sickness. We never think about worse. We never think about poorer. Highlight for us maybe one of those times in your marriage that's been a real trial for you or a testing time for you as a couple.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
I'll think
yeah, I would just say we had a point in time when all 3 kids were in 3 different schools. It was just the chaos of, I drove a minivan and would back in and out of the driveway like on a Monday 16 times. It was not
Yes.
because of OCD. It was just that many places
needed
to
to do
be,
that.
right?
Uh-huh.
So life was really, really full. And Darrin and I were drifting
Okay.
in our marriage. And Darrin kept trying to talk with me about like pursuing intimacy. And he's like, it's not even about sex. It was really like intimacy and knowing each
Knowing
other.
one another,
Knowing
yeah.
one another. And I think I had held so much resentment that I had not been talking with him about. And so this build up, and I just kept pushing him away like, no, no, no. And then unexpectedly, in December, right on the Friday that the kids were going to get out for winter break, I had previously discovered a lump in my breast. Took my concern to my doctor. She checked it out. She goes, I'm not worried about it, but just in case, I'll give you a diagnostic mammogram. And so I had expected to go to the mammogram and then kick into all the parties at school and all the
Right.
things. And that ended up becoming a 3-hour appointment that went from the mammogram to an ultrasound to a core biopsy.
Wow.
And the doctor was like, I'm not going to pussyfoot around. I don't like what I'm seeing. But we couldn't know for sure what the diagnosis was until that. And I called Darrin. I just said, the doctor, I think it's really serious. Can you please come? And our daughter had food allergies, so I had baked special, sugar cookies for her. And can you take the cookies to Julia? Can you come home? And I felt like in that time we were having so much conflict, and it was right around Christmas. So it was 3 days before Christmas when the final call came, and it had been raining so hard in it never rains in Southern California, but it had been raining so hard that weekend, and it just matched my mood. And then Monday came, and the doctor just got on the call, and she goes, I'm sorry, you have invasive lobular carcinoma. And those were 3 words I'd never heard before.
Yeah.
And she goes, I'm sorry, you have breast cancer. And I took that call in the garage. And Darrin and I were in conflict about something. And I heard the garage door open. Darrin walked into the garage, and he looked at me. And I got out of the car, and I just burst into tears. And I said, it's cancer. The doctor says it's cancer. I just sobbed in his T-shirt, and he put his arms around me, and he just prayed. He just, God, we're scared. We don't know what we're doing. Would you just help us know that you're here, and we want to trust you, and in our garage door there are these little windows, and the moment he finished praying, we opened our eyes, and literally a sunbeam broke through the clouds and just landed right where we stood in our garage there. And it's like the Lord said, I'm going to be with you, and that set us on a whole different trajectory. I think.
Darrin, can you talk about how, like, that moment in the garage? Like, what was it like to hear those words come out of your wife's mouth into this season of conflict and drifting?
Yeah. Well, when she said that, I mean, I'm walking in not knowing, and obviously thinking, okay, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
But when she gets out, I can see it on her face. And so immediately I'm hugging her when she's letting me know what it is. But in that moment, it was nothing else mattered. It just didn't matter. All the conflict was just so, nothing else mattered but her and our relationship. And so it was like, it's like everything melted away. And all of a sudden I felt so dependent, I guess, on the Lord. But more than anything, I just felt like we were together. And so it was funny. And that was, I would have to say that was the Lord, because we were having so much conflict. That was not a normal thing for me to just, hug her like that and say, we're good. I got you. It would have been more like, oh, well, I could have made some snide remark, but at that moment, it just didn't matter.
Wow.
What was important was where she was at, and we were in this together.
Yeah. And I think what Darrin was demonstrating was what the Bible talks about with unconditional love, because it wasn't based on how I had been treating him or his efforts to try to move toward me. It was really just this commitment to be in a covenant relationship that wasn't based on 50-50 meeting halfway, but it was like Darrin was going to be committed to me despite how I had been, and that was huge. And so when I went through chemo, Darrin had shaved his head bald every day I was bald. He went with me to every chemo treatment. There was one time they worked it so that I would get a different, after my chemo treatment, a shot that would regenerate my white blood cells in the bone marrow, and it was excruciatingly painful.
Okay.
And I remember after one of the treatments, it was I was in the kitchen getting some water at like 2:30 in the morning, and Darrin came in. I just slid to the floor, and he looked at me. He goes, "Do you think you can make it back to the bed?" And I just shook my head like, "No." And he goes, "Okay." And then I just heard him like rustling, and then he had gone and gotten our sleeping bags and our pillows, and we literally just slept in the kitchen until morning. Like, it was just so there's these acts of sacrificial love that was just to me very profound, to see commitment that wasn't based on my performance. And I think that that's kind of a core issue that I deal with, is just this performance being driven, and to be loved at my worst. It was really profound.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I sound really good in all this.
Yeah.
And the reality is that we had both sides. I mean, there are times that, yeah, I'm all there. I really was. I'm in no matter what. And there are times that I get just so tired of it and just thought, what about me? You know, that I just felt the selfishness, like, what about me?
Yeah.
Well, it's like I think about this in terms of a lot of times when sickness of any kind
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
comes into a marriage. I mean, I think that's why that part of the marriage vows has remained durable for a very long time, because it's a way of reminding each other something is coming. But you're so cavalier when you say it on your wedding day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then even when you get the diagnosis, like it's super hot, but then the treatments and the weeks and the sickness and everything, like you have to make an adjustment of your expectations because you've been jarred and not, okay, now you're awake, but then you're starting down this journey to a whole new season. Talk about what it's like to walk with somebody who's sick
Yeah.
for a long time. And, you know,
You can, because I think we have the expectation, yes, I'm in it all the way. But you're right. After a while, it gets wearing.
yeah.
Like going to church and everybody wants to know, how's Vivian? And she's not there because she just can't make it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm fielding the questions, and there's inside of me going, well, what about me? I'm here. You
Right.
know, so
Seriously.
Yeah.
that
how
gets a
am I?
little
Yeah.
wearing. What was great during that time was God continued to show us just through, I mean, because everybody loved us. They wanted to know. They cared. And so we had some other friends come alongside and said, you know what? I will field the questions. Literally had that gal
Yeah.
said, you know what? Don't worry about church. I'll stick with you, but I'll field the questions.
Oh, wow.
And that was a blessing. But it got tiring at times because and anytime we were together, it was good. It really was, because I'm watching her and I'm thinking, whatever you need, I'm there. But then by the end of the day, I could feel I was just kind of worn out. And what I really needed was to continue to lean into other people, which that took me a while to learn, because it really was not, that wasn't my lead foot. My lead foot was, okay, I got this.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then it just took a while before I started getting frustrated and snapping at Viv, realizing that, okay, I need help. I need to lean into other people in the same way that she has leaned into other people.
Yeah. I think that it was so marriage wise, the tension, that idea of community is so key for the health of the individuals and the couple together. And I think we saw that in such profound ways. But the challenge was, being in ministry, I was used to being the strong one. Like, I like to help people. I'll bring you a meal. Heather, if you're sick, I can bring you some soup. Very difficult to become a receiver, a gracious receiver, humbling. That was soul altering, to be in that place where we were in need and people were showing up. And our little church, I think, probably had our garage code memorized and just kept bringing in groceries and meals, and it was overwhelming in a beautiful way, but that helped to alleviate some of the stress that comes with that time. I think about what it would be like to go through a challenge without community, and I think that would be so wearing on a marriage to not have other people be able to also come alongside. So that, I think, I'm grateful for that. And that had been investments that had been made long before we had the diagnosis. So for your listeners, in this time, it's costly. It takes time to form relationship, but it's so worthwhile, not for the sake of the future hard times, but just in life.
Yeah.
And in those times when it's really hard. It's amazing. Darrin just recently had surgery unexpectedly for his gallbladder just this last month. And it was, again, like people come alongside, and I'm in the hospital and someone could care for the dog. And,
Yeah.
just really seeing people, sitting with me during the surgery, just things like
Right.
that just makes all the difference. We were not meant to go through life on our own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the tensions that existed before the diagnosis. Did they ever come back? And how did you deal with those after, because sometimes you do have something like that that's jarring, but then the underlying issues might still be there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so did you revisit those? Did they come back? What did that look like?
Did they come back?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they're still there.
Unfortunately, they don't just disappear like that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I mean, and really, it was, I think during the active treatment part, it was just trying to get through every appointment. And there were so many appointments to be at. I kind of put emotions to the side because it just took everything just to show up.
Mhm.
But it was after cancer treatment that was like, I need to go to counseling.
Okay.
Things surfaced, and then it was like, Darrin, we need to go to counseling. And so that was an area. I think it provided a space for me to hear from Darrin what I couldn't hear when he was trying to explain to me, if that makes sense. So, like Darrin had been explaining all along, like, you keep talking about the cancer journey being like a marathon, and he's like, Viv, I was running in step with you all through this marathon, and I had a backpack on my shoulders too. And he goes, and there are all these signs, and people are sending you flowers and encouragement. Like I didn't have any sign. I'm just so tired at the end of this race, and I couldn't hear that until we were sitting in the counselor's office to really begin to enter into what Darrin was trying to explain to me. So I found that the counseling was helpful, but our issues are still kind of hardwired as issues. I'm curious what you think.
Everything's good. No,
It's been fun to be with you guys.
Yeah. I'm not sure what she's talking about, but no, it really, it did. It resurfaced. I mean, it's like the crisis as she started getting better, finishing up this active treatment. We got to the point where she said, I want a party. We're ready to celebrate. And I said, time out.
Okay.
Can we postpone this party just a little bit? She goes, no, I need to have this party now. And I'm like, Viv, I'm exhausted. And so that kind of brought everything back to the surface. And she's like, why are you so upset? I said, I'm not upset. I'm just asking for a little bit. She goes, well, I need something to help me. And I get that.
Yeah.
It was something that she had walked through all of this. It was huge. But I just wanted her to hear from me that I walked through it with you. I didn't have to do all the things you did, but I was with you.
Yeah.
And I just needed a moment or just some space. So that brought everything up, and we started walking through that. It got back into where we were, into the argument. And I can't remember how we got back into the counselor's office, but
But we call counselors our paid friends.
Yeah, right.
And we highly recommend, in different seasons, we've gone to individual marriage counseling as well as couples counseling, and for various reasons.
And I think in this situation, it was helpful because she didn't feel safe just talking to me openly about some of the things that she was dealing with or wrestling with, or maybe even identifying. But with the counselor, she was able to, and that helped.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I wasn't a safe person.
Yeah. So we're still on the journey.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's been a lot of growth, a lot of awareness of things, but we're still uncovering so many things that are just part of how we how we're attracted to each other, which is the good part, but also underneath that can be the areas that we most need to grow in. And realizing, okay, we are attracted to each other for sometimes unhealthy reasons too. And trying to uncover some of that and grow in that has been part of our journey. And it's forced us to, I think, being now with you all, with speaking at marriage conferences, it's really causing us to have to look at some of these things and to not stop.
Yeah.
I just told somebody today, you'd be surprised how much marriage trouble you start to have when you sign up to speak at a marriage conference.
Right?
Yes.
It's absolutely a real reality. It has been for us.
Yeah. I'm curious. I think anytime I go through something hard, and then I have the privilege of being able to look back on it, because sometimes we're not able to process when we're in the middle of it. You said, I heard you say, Vivian, that you were self-sufficient, or that's kind of something that's your way. And so it was hard. It was humbling to be able to receive. And then for you, Darrin, to be able to serve her in the way where your needs had to be completely put to the side altogether because her life literally depended on
Yeah.
it. What would you say if you looked back on that experience? What did the Lord teach you each about yourselves in the roles that you had to play in that season?
That's good.
That's a great question.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was that it's okay to be able to, I needed to still ask for help in the midst of that, and still be able to talk to other people, other men. I needed other men in my life, and I had them, but I wasn't initially talking to them because as a caregiver, you don't think, well, I need help too.
Yeah.
And so looking back, I realized, and especially what helped me see this was coming alongside other caregivers. So other men who wives were going through difficult times, could have been cancer, being able to come alongside and talk to them and realize, you know what, I didn't ask for this. And so to be able to be available helped me see, I wasn't asking. I didn't see it as, well, I saw it as she's the one that needed help, but not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But after a while, it's just so wearing, and I wasn't asking for help. So that was a big aha for me of how I didn't ask for help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it pertains to the cancer journey, but it's also kind of an overall theme that keeps coming up again and again. But having a posture of humility changes everything. I mean, it really changes the dynamic in a marriage and in the midst of conflict, in the midst of any type of relationship.
Yeah.
And so looking back, I am sad that I didn't take more time to listen to Darrin and have that humility to just take in and be able to hear and not feel like it was an affront against me. Because it's kind of like, because I wanted so much for him to understand how important it was for me.
Yeah.
Instead of understanding from his perspective. And so I just think, gosh, to have more humility would move our conversation farther and deeper. And I think even to this present moment, if I could like clothe myself with humility, that would help me to hear more instead of respond in defensiveness. That's kind of my lead foot would be just to be defensive and protect myself instead of having the humility to understand and really truly listen and take in. And it wasn't necessarily that Darrin was trying to change my mind. I look back on that now. It's like he wasn't trying to change my mind. It really was, he was trying to express where he was at.
Yeah.
And I could not see that at the time. So, yeah. So that question's a good one to keep reflecting on.
Okay.
We always talk about, really this podcast exists. We talk about marriage, but the heart of it is the gospel. And because marriage is just the perfect picture of Christ and the church.
Yeah.
We're the bride of Christ. And so I wonder if you could just in a, word or two or phrase or two, or I don't know, take as long as you want. Where is this story intersecting with the gospel for you right now, where you are today? You're healthy again. You're on the backside of a cancer treatment. You've moved into that, and still you're fighting for your marriage. You're also fighting for something bigger than just a marriage.
Yes.
It's something else. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
And that's exciting because it never ceases to amaze me how much God wants me to be more like Christ. In other words, and he will stop at nothing so that would happen. So that even in our marriage, some of the most challenging things that happen is there to continue to refine me. And my lead foot is usually going to be defensive or blame her rather than say, God, what are you trying to teach me about me that doesn't fit into what it means to be Christ-like? And he's using our marriage to make us more Christ-like. And so when Viv talks about humility, the idea of being able to stop, take a step back and go, God, what are you trying to teach me? Because in and of myself, I think I'm okay. I think, you know what, I'm good enough. I don't have to really grow. I mean, sure, there are things, but there's someone so close to me that knows me so well that knows how to push my buttons and also brings out not the best and the worst, but I think that's where the holiness comes out, where it's like God's giving me an opportunity to bring to him these parts of me that need to be redeemed. And so that's what marriage does. And I love that. It's a picture of Jesus,
Yeah.
redeeming us.
Yeah. And I would say, in addition and alongside, this concept of love is so profound. In the world system, most marriages end because of irreconcilable differences, which we kind of talked about at the beginning. Like, we have all these differences, and it's by nature because we just are different. No matter what. So even if you think that if you were married to someone else who's make-believe on TV, you would have differences. And that's just a reality that we have such difficult time embracing. So we have differences, and this concept of love, unconditional love, that God's love for us is unconditional. It's not based on our performance. There's nothing that we can do to make God love us any more or any less. And how that's lived out in marriage, where over and over we have the opportunity to demonstrate and to receive and to give that kind of love, is unlike anything that the world has to offer. It's not about happiness. It's not about my needs being met or a feeling. It really comes down to this commitment that God has for us. That is, it blows my mind. Darrin and I are both the first Christians in our family too. So it's, so it's just like there's a freshness because I've seen what my parents had, and I didn't want to even get married because what they had I didn't want what they had because there was so much tension and conflict and in many ways a lack of the type of love that's described in 1 Corinthians. Love is patient and kind and faithful and all of those things. And then to see a Christian marriage and to see the difference that a Christian marriage would have because of Christ. And it's like, oh, that changes everything. And we talk about this. I think one of our speaker couples, Elisa Grace, talks about it. It's the difference between having a Christian marriage and a marriage that's like centered on Christ. And I think that, even for me, that's a challenge. Am I just trying to do a Christian life, or is my life really centered on Christ? That's what the gospel is all about. It's following him. It's not following a set of rules. It's not attendance at church. It's a personal relationship. And this is where we live it out.
That's great.
That is beautiful. So a life centered on Christ is what I'm hearing you say is that's the key. That's the goal. It's not a Christian marriage. It's not checking a box. It's not working on these principles or even working on ourselves. It is centering our lives on Christ. And then when we do that, we're better and we're better together. Right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being with us. It's an honor. Tell us how we can find you, because you guys have a lot going on. Obviously, we can hear you speak at Family
Darrin
Life.
and Vivian are famous.
Weekend to Remember conferences, right? How else? Social media. Tell me what else you have going on, where we can find you.
Oh, yeah. I'm on Instagram is currently off my phone. Yay!
Okay. Taking a break.
I'm taking a break.
Okay.
But I'm on Instagram at Viv Mabuni.
Okay.
And I have a website, vivianmabuni.com. Darrin is just so great because he's not on social media. And I respect that so much. It's so
That
good.
is awesome. Yeah. And you've got some books available.
Yes, I do.
Where can we get those?
On Amazon
Okay.
or bookstores, Barnes & Noble.
What are the titles of your books?
Open Hands, Willing Heart
Okay.
is the book that I wrote in 2019. So it feels a little dated now. I think it might be time for a new one.
Yeah.
And then my book on cancer is Warrior in Pink.
Warrior in Pink. So
Warrior
you have a book about the story that you told today.
Yeah.
All right.
That's awesome.
Check that out, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you again, guys. Darrin and Vivian, thank you for being with us.
Yep. Together on purpose.
Together on purpose.
All right.
So good.